Cattlemen come together to whip cancer at the 2018 Nebraska Cattlemen's Ball. We'll meet the beef producers behind the event, plus the latest in the on-again, off-again trade war and what it means for Nebraska agriculture, including a one-on-one talk with Congressman Adrian Smith here at Cattlemen's Ball. It's time to grow. Cattlemen's Ball 2018. Beef producers come together, inviting their friends, raising funds, having a party, most of all, supporting cancer research.
Over 4,000 folks are here supporting the town of Hebron and whipping out cancer the best way they know how.
Everybody here under this tent has been affected by cancer one way or another.
Ken Cohen with the Fred and Pamela Buffett Cancer Center says they've partnered with the Cattlemen's Ball for the past 20 years. And in that time, he says the money has helped thousands.
90% of money raised goes to the Fred and Pamela Buffett Cancer Center, and we use it 100% to support researchers through recruiting new faculty. And over the last 20 years, over 200 new faculty have been recruited to the Cancer Center.
Last year, the ball raised over $1 million. This year was a sellout, and their goal was 1.5. With Nebraskans from across the state attending, support seems to be the greatest part of the event.
You put people together that never would even hardly speak to each other, and we make them work together. And I was told many times, thank you for bringing our community together.
Joe Jeffrey was the host of the 1999 Cattlemen's Ball. He says back then they raised over $100,000 and raves now about how the ball has grown. And Cohen gives all of us that have been affected by cancer a bit of hope.
There's 14 million Americans alive as cancer survivors today. There'll be 20 million Americans alive as cancer survivors by 2022. So more and more people are surviving this disease. There's more hope for everybody.
And the news is official. Next year's event will be hosted in Waneta, Nebraska. Sydney Edwards, NTV News, Hebron.
We will have much more on Cattlemen's Ball later in the program. But now we go to Ag News. That starts at the White House as the president carries through his promise to impose those tariffs. The Commerce Secretary says there will be a 25% tariff on imported steel and a 10% tariff on imported aluminum. President Donald Trump announced the tariffs in March, but the U.S. granted exemptions to the EU, Canada, Mexico, and other allies. The Commerce Secretary says NAFTA talks are taking longer than hoped, and he says negotiations with Europe have made progress, but not enough to merit an exemption. The American Soybean Association calls it devastating, expecting retaliation. The association says soybean farmers lost an estimated $1.72 billion on Wednesday morning alone as soybean futures tumbled. Nebraska Senator Ben Sasse weighing in, saying, quote, "This is dumb. Europe, Canada, and Mexico are not China, and you don't treat allies the same way you treat opponents. We've been down this road before. Blanket protectionism is a big part of why America had a Great Depression. Make America great again shouldn't mean make America 1929 again." End quotes. We also caught up with Congressman Adrian Smith, who shared his concerns.
Tariffs, I think, are intended to increase the cost of products. That is not a good situation economically, and even especially in the broad perspective. But then more specifically, when we see retaliation aimed at American agriculture, we are very concerned. I hear from producers all the time. They're concerned about targeted retaliation at American agriculture.
Nebraska Farm Bureau weighing in, quote, "For months we've warned of the risks involved for farm and ranch families as the Trump administration continues to pursue policies that target our closest trading partners. Today's announcement that Mexico, Canada, and the European Union, three of the top agriculture trading partners for Nebraska commodities, will no longer be exempt from these tariffs, only creates additional uncertainty in agricultural markets and in the minds of farm and ranch families." End quote. And we're learning more about efforts to rein in the electronic logging device issue as it pertains to livestock haulers. According to Senator Deb Fischer, the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration has clarified some of its rules, saying any hours worked by a driver within a 150-mile radius of where the commodity is loaded are exempt. Senator Fisher says she will continue to work with Transportation Secretary Elaine Chao on behalf of the egg industry to get more flexibility for livestock truckers. Memorial Day brought a fire at a local co-op facility. GI fire crews were called to the Aurora Co-op location on Old Highway 30. The shift commander says they used a ladder truck to soak the bin full of flaxseed with foam. They continue to investigate. No estimate on how much damage was caused. Poly bags are an alternative to grain bins, growing in interest, working well for some farmers. Nebraska Extension educator Todd Whitney says the poly bags are effective for farmers looking to store grain for a short period of time. He says the bags do an excellent job at keeping the air out and the same moisture levels as when the grain is first put in. But Whitney says farmers do have to make sure to keep an eye on them.
We have had a case or two where people have had some negative effects from it. You have to be careful that you don't have tears that get into it. We had one case where wildlife was a concern, where they had an opening and cattle then overate in some of those cases. So we do have to watch them and maintain them, but for the most part, they've been very, very beneficial.
A new biodiesel blending station set to open soon. The Sapp Brothers facility will hold a grand opening June 7th in Geneva. It's less than a mile from the New Star terminal. Fuel suppliers can load diesel on their transport at that terminal, then load biodiesel at Sapp Brothers for the blend they want. Farming is a way of life here in Nebraska, but how often do we stop and think safety? NTV's Alex Whitney has our story.
Learning the things that they need to keep them safe. The University of Nebraska Medical Center and the Nebraska Extension have joined teams to bring tractor safety to central Nebraska. Several students aged 13 to 16 showed up at the Buffalo County Fairgrounds to start their training in ag safety. The program, brought to the area by the UNMC in cooperation with the Nebraska Extension, aims to prepare its students for life working on the farm.
This is all part of a national law requiring that students that are 14 and 15 who want to work on farms other than their parents' farm are required to take this certification, pass the testing, and then they will get a certificate to allow them to work on farms.
The course is important as agriculture is actually considered the most hazardous industry in the country by injury rate and leads Nebraska industry in workplace fatalities.
So lots can happen on the farm. It kind of all depends. We go over kind of a set curriculum based on the National Tractor Safety Program. And for the PPE and everything like that, there's dust masks that we go over, hearing protection, hearing conservation, really trying to minimize the exposure to what's on the farm.
The staff running the program say that the dangers of the agriculture industry are often understated, with many working in the ag industry unaware of the chronic health problems that can develop over time.
We don't think about the health so much. We think about the injuries because they're in the news. But when we have over 50% of our farmers over 50 with hearing handicaps, that's something we need to talk about. We also have a high rate of chronic obstructive pulmonary disease in our farmers, and so we talk about respiratory protection, how to get that mask, how to choose a respirator, and how to get the right fit.
For NTV News, I'm Alex Whitney, Kearney.
Hi, I'm Ronnie Morgan from Taylor, Nebraska, from the Luke County World's Fair, and you're watching Nebraska Grow.